So I wanted to put together a video of the top 10 most viewed videos on my channel over the last year. In each of these kind of inserts that you'll see, there's a card in there that links to the full video where you can find out more information about that particular topic, and I hope you find value out of it. The major test with this is the definition of what this building can be used for. The important definition you need to understand is that it's incidental to the enjoyment of the dwelling house. So if you build an outbuilding within the curtilage of your dwelling house, it needs to be incidental to the enjoyment of the dwelling house. What it's trying to say is that you cannot turn it into a flat. So you can build a swimming pool, you can keep bees, you can keep chicken, you can do whatever you want. It can be a home office. You know, the point is that it's an extension of that home for the purposes of the people living in it. You can't use the outbuilding to then create a self-contained flat and then rent it out or sell it or whatever. If you want to learn more about the planning process and how you can unlock value out of any property, click the link below to learn more. People make alterations to their house or changes of use to residential or any other alterations. They look to the 4-year rule to rectify the situation from a planning point of view. It's a well-used way of rectifying changes to your house that you haven't already got planning permission for. So this video is going to walk through the 4-year rule, explain what it is, and then go through best bits of evidence that you can submit to make sure that when you approach the council looking to use the 4-year rule, then you've got the best information possible. This video is a reminder to those that are worried about instability in the economy, instability in the government, wondering what's going to happen to their assets. It's a reminder of all the opportunities that are available to you under permitted development rights right now. There are more permitted development rights now than there have ever been, but the main benefit of all these additions to permitted development rights is to do with residential. You can add floor space, you can have roof extensions, side extensions, change of use, add new units. You can all do that under permitted development. Never has that been possible before. Normally, especially when you're trying to add new units, that comes with it a planning process. You need to apply for that. That's always been the case. This is the first time really that you can do new residential units under permitted development. Now, why is that so important? Well, as I've said before, the planning industry is a seriously slow moving process. And as anyone will know who's submitting an application to a local authority, it's not much quicker when you submit an application. So for those that don't know, once you submit an application, you get assigned a case officer, and the case officer reviews it and ultimately makes a decision. The case officer within the local authority. Now, back in the good old days when you used to submit applications, you used to talk to the officer, hi, how's it going? You didn't have to submit much information, you would talk it through and eventually you'd get permission. Now, you know, the development industry has not slowed down. Obviously the population has gone up so much. One wants to extend their home or change use or build new buildings or whatever. Councils have for well over a decade now just suffered with lack of investment, and it means that when you submit an application, all these developments are coming in, but the local council has had no investment to the point where they haven't added more staff, so those officers are just getting loaded and loaded and loaded. So it means that the experience for someone who submits an application is very poor now. But if you watch these videos that I've done, the whole idea is to kind of clear up the process, make it as simple as understand as possible, because it's not that complicated. It's just people in the planning world adding weird abbreviations to things to make them sound, I don't know why they make them sound so complicated, but they do. So don't be scared by the complexities. It's just a matter of knowing where to look and how to apply it, and then if you apply it to a planning application or a site that you're considering developing, then you're in with a really good chance of getting permission. You'll be able to approach the council with so much more confidence than most people who just throw in an application, get angry at the whole process because they don't understand it, and generally get frustrated with the whole development process and end up being scared away from the whole thing. If you're thinking about getting planning permission for yourself, this video is going to kind of lay out exactly what you need to know in terms of what is it that you're likely to get permission for, what you need to consider when approaching the council, how to apply for planning permission or permitted development rights, as we'll get to, what to expect once your application is in, what's the actual process within the council. A lot of people get frustrated with the council, but I don't think people quite understand exactly what goes on, so hopefully this will kind of help you with that. How long it's likely to take to get permission, which varies unfortunately, and then what to do once you get permission, hopefully, or if you get refused. All that means for you is that you need to now get planning permission if you intend on renting your property out for more than 90 days. It becomes a sui generis use class and you need to apply for planning permission. Now, each local authority is different. So London, this is a big issue, and I would say that in London, if you were to apply, it would be challenging to get planning permission for it because housing demand is so high. But across the country, this is different. So you may well find in your local authority that you can apply for this and it will be okay. It's this that will cause local developers and local applicants to get in touch with you before it even gets to the planning officer, which is really big. And that is to become part of a group. Now, local groups generally have acronyms of what they're trying to achieve. Generally, it's like the local area and then whatever name they decide to put in it. The more people that are on that, obviously the more impactful, because it represents a larger slice of the community. But what's also more important is if you can get hold of very influential people within that community on that group who either speaks on your behalf or is a very clear and active member within that community that everyone knows about, so that when that objection letter gets written, it not only represents you, but it represents hundreds or thousands of people that are impacted by this development.
So this is the page you need to keep an eye on. The Levelling Up and Regeneration Bill is moving through Parliament, and as of right now, it is at the committee stage in the House of Lords. Now, it's likely, if all goes well without any issues, that it will receive royal assent at the end of April, which basically means it will then become law. The reason why I'm telling you this is because of this. So section 107 of this talks about the time limits for enforcement, which is very relevant if you ever consider using the 4-year rule. And as you'll notice, in section 17B of the Town and Country Planning Act 1990, time limits for the words from 4 years to the end substitute, in the case of a breach of planning control in England, 10 years, beginning with the date on which the operations were substantially completed. Now, that basically now means that if you're thinking about using the 4-year rule to benefit from deemed consent, so if you've made changes to your house or a residential building, you would fall back on the 4-year rule. Now, the test is 10 years. So that means you need to be even more organised. If you want to apply for a certificate of lawfulness for any alterations you make to a residential building, you need to show 10 years of evidence. So that is a quite fundamental change if you're ever considering using the certificate of lawfulness. So by the end of April, you need to have your applications in to demonstrate that 4 years have passed from your residential change or alteration. Otherwise, if you apply after this bill has received royal assent, and assuming this provision is still in the bill, from one day you will be applying 4 years, the next day you'll be applying and you'll need to demonstrate 10 years. So very important, and one you need to keep an eye on.
A lot of people want to know what the rules of planning permission are. How come the guy down the street can get a rear extension and I can't? How do I get a change of use? How do I get planning permission for new housing? How do I use permitted development? What's an HMO? How can I get planning permission for an HMO? All these questions get asked all the time, and you just need to implement a set of simple strategies to give you the best chance of getting planning permission every time that you apply. Anyone that's been through the planning system without a kind of strategy going into it will know how frustrating it can be, and over the years it's created multiple generations of people that just hate the planning system because of how unpredictable it is. But if you implement a set of simple strategies, then you can give yourself the best chance of getting planning permission, and you can be one of the few that actually maybe even enjoys the system and recognises what it can do for you, rather than it being a massive burden on what you want to achieve. So I've been a planning officer in my career. I've been in the planning industry for over 10 years, and I've seen applicants on both. So I've represented applicants, and I've also determined planning applications for all types of things, for all the things I've mentioned, like HMOs, rear extensions, changes of use, new housing. And there were so many times that I've noticed that even just a simple tweak to someone's application will just give them the best opportunity. Or if it's not a tweak, it's just a bit of research that they could have done before. So this video kind of encapsulates that to give you the best opportunity, so you can use this maybe as a toolkit the next time that you go for planning permission. So the first and most important thing before you go anywhere near the council and start throwing in applications is to do your research, and it is the number one thing that everyone must do and so many people don't do in order to unlock the development potential of a site. I was a planning officer for years, and so many times I got applications, and within the first 5 minutes of getting a case, you know whether or not it's going to get permission, and it often comes down to 3 very, very basic steps that you need to take just to understand whether or not it's got potential. So we'll walk through them now. The first thing is to check the planning history. This is the single and most foremost important step that you can take, and it can almost bypass the next 2 because it gives you so much insight into a site.